He screams, what they fear has come to them. The death that these people fear, it's coming to them. Their deeds are done and their strength is over. And he's saying, by Allah, they know that they're defeated now. So when the people of Fitna saw that they were challenged, openly challenged, and that they're not feared anymore, so they had a meeting. And Ashtar al-Nukh'i said, let's leave and separate. Just break up the small groups and all of us leave Medina. So then Ibn Saba, Abdullah ibn Saba, ibn Sawda, said, what a bad judgment. Let us infiltrate and mix with the army of Ali, so we're among his people and his close groups. And so they can't fight us except by fighting Ali with us. And he had the best opinion. So they agreed upon that. So from then on, they never gathered together. Before they used to gather together and you could identify them as the people of Fitna. But from that point on, they were never together. But they always mixed with people. Wherever Ali was, they were mixed amongst that group and they would never leave it. And you will see as we go on, they're always surrounding Ali radiallahu anh. So now when he consults, he's consulting them. Meanwhile, Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma decided to leave Al-Madinah. He sees that there is no control there, and he feared that if he told Ali that he's leaving Medina, that Ali will prevent him. He had not pledged to Ali, but he still wanted to leave without letting him know. His position was that he would stay away from the fitna totally. So he goes at night to Kulthum, the daughter of Ali radiallahu anh. And she used to be the wife of Umar ibn al-Khattab. So she was actually his stepmother. So he goes to her, he tells her, I decided to go to Mecca to avoid the fitna. And I'm afraid that Ali will not think well of me. So tell him that I'm going to Mecca just to avoid the fitna. So in the morning, people wake up and they find that Abdullah ibn Umar is not around. And news reaches Ali radiallahu anhu. So they said to him, this is worse for you than the refusal of Talha and Zubair to give the bay'ah. Because they thought that Abdullah ibn Umar was going to Sham, to Syria, to Muawiyah. And there he was going to become the Khalifa. And everyone was going to pledge to Abdullah ibn Umar. And there they have an army of 60,000. So they're telling him, this is worse for you than Talha and Zubair refusing to pledge to you. So then Ali radiallahu anhu feared that the Ummah would be with two khulafa. So he prepares the army to get to Abdullah ibn Umar and stop him from reaching Sham, to stop the greater fitna. He's preparing an army now just to stop Abdullah ibn Umar from getting to Sham. So now news of these preparations reaches Kulthum, and she tells him what happened. She tells him that he just said he's going to Mecca. So then Ali radiallahu anhu says, Wallahi, he is with me, trustworthy. He's saying that Abdullah ibn Umar, if he tells you he went to Mecca, I believe him, he's a trustworthy man. And for sure he went to Mecca. So he believes him immediately. He doesn't think that perhaps he's still going to Sham, he's doing this as a diversion. He says, Wallahi, I believe him. As we remember, we mentioned that Aisha radiallahu anha and the other mothers of the believers, they left Medina before the murder of Uthman radiallahu anhu. They left for Hajj in Mecca. And Aisha radiallahu anha would go every day to the area of Sarif on the way to Medina and wait for the news. And when the news reaches her of Uthman, the death of Uthman, she says, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And then she waits to see what happens. And she hears the news of people pledging to Ali radiallahu anhu. And she knew that the companions won't pledge and that Ali has no power over the people of Fitna. So she goes to the Haram in Mecca. And she sits in the Hijr of Ismail, that small semicircular area you see in the pictures of the Kaaba. She sat there and a partition was put up. And people gathered. And she was known, radiallahu anha, to have a loud voice. So she spoke out loud and she praised Allah. And she sent the salah upon His messenger Muhammad. And then she starts to call the people to gather and to prepare to kill the murderers of Uthman. By her estimation, Ali radiallahu anhu is powerless in Medina, and she wants to gather the people to go and avenge the death of Uthman. Abdullah ibn Amr, we mentioned him, he was the governor of Basra, put there by Uthman, and he left it when the new governor came from Ali. He left and he went to Mecca. And when he heard this, he said, I will be the first to join this army. He responds to the call of Aisha radiallahu anha. And Talha and Zubair and others gathered to go and kill the murderers of Uthman. So now the governor of Ali in Mecca, Qithm ibn al-Abbas, he saw that he has no control, so he went back to Medina. Because now, Ali radiallahu anhu had put him the governor of Mecca, and he sees now the armies and all the people are getting ready to attack and kill the murderers of Uthman, so he sees that he has no power, so he leaves Mecca and he goes back to Medina. Then joining them is also Ya'li ibn Umayyah. And remember him from Yemen. He's the one who took all the wealth. He left, remember he refused to pledge to Ali. He took all the wealth and he went to Mecca. He didn't take it for his personal use. He arrives in Mecca and he finds the army looking for money to help raise the army. So he brings them the wealth, saying, I gathered it during the reign of Uthman, so take it. And he had with him 600 camels and 600,000 dirhams. So this is excellent assistance in preparing the army. So there are 1,000 warriors prepared now under the army of Aisha radiallahu anha and Talha and Zubair. Where should they go now? Where should this army head? Should they go to Medina? And they say no, it's the place of the people of Fitna, and Ali radiallahu anhu won't allow it, and we don't want to fight Ali. They don't want that. Should they go to Sham? They found that Muawiyah radiallahu anhu is in charge of Sham and he's on their side. So Abdullah ibn Amr, who said he was the former governor of Basra, he says, let us go to Al-Basra. And I'm their governor, I used to be their governor there, and the people there respect me, so let's head there. So they start to head to Al-Basra. And the people start to hear of the army of the mothers of the believers, Aisha radiallahu anha, and they start to join this army. Remember we said the army had 1,000 warriors. In no time the army now consists of 3,000 warriors. Hafsa and the rest of the mothers of the believers left out with the army, because at this point they were thinking that they're going to Medina. But then when it became that the army is going to Basra, the mothers of the believers went back. They left back. They went to Mecca. They said, we're not going to Basra with you. But Hafsa radiallahu anha said, my opinion is that of Aisha. And she left with Aisha. So now Aisha and Hafsa radiallahu anhun are going to Basra with the army. But Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhum hears of Hafsa. She's his sister. He hears of her and that she joined the army, and he came to her and he said, go back. The Prophet ﷺ, when he was alive, he was in charge over Hafsa radiallahu anha. And when her husband, the Prophet ﷺ, dies, Umar, her father, becomes in charge of her. And when Umar radiallahu anhu dies, her brother becomes in charge of her. And these are values that have been lost now. If a girl's father dies and her brother tells her something, she won't listen to him. But this is how it is. This is the mother of the believers, Hafsa radiallahu anha. And her brother tells her, go back. You can't go to Basra. He doesn't allow her. So Hafsa sends to Aisha, saying, Abdullah has prevented me. And then Aisha says, يَغْفِرُ اللَّهُ لَهُ. And Hafsa radiallahu anha goes back to Mecca. When this army of Aisha radiallahu anha left Mecca, the women and the people and everyone came out crying over the death of Uthman. So many people came out crying over the death of Uthman. So the people of the army themselves started to cry, and the voices were raised with weeping and crying. So much so that it became known as the day of Nahib. Nahib is crying in a loud voice. Everyone crying, remembering the third Khalifa of Islam and how he was murdered, and now they're going to avenge his death. It was a very sad moment. So now all the great companions and all those of Bani Umayyah went out with Talha and Zubair and Abdullah ibn Zubair. These were the leaders of the movement. As well, Al-Walid ibn Uqba and Sa'id ibn al-As and Al-Marwan ibn al-Hakam from Bani Umayyah. And not to mention al-Mu'mineen Aisha radiallahu anha. And the army advances, and it was the time for Salah. So now, usually the Amir is the one who leads the Salah. And Aisha is the head of the movement, and she cannot lead the Salah obviously. So Abdullah ibn Zubair says, let Zubair lead the Salah. And Muhammad ibn Talha says, let Talha lead the Salah. And they asked Aisha, and she said, Abdurrahman ibn Utab ibn Usaid should lead the Salah. So she wants to move the issue from having disagreement if it's Talha or Zubair should lead the Salah. So she has Abdurrahman ibn Utab ibn Usaid lead the Salah. So then Ali radiallahu anhu hears of the news of this army, And at first he says, we'll leave them alone. And then he thought to himself and says, if I could convince them to join me, then that would be better. So he had an army prepared to attack Al-Basra. This is when he found no bay'ah in Al-Basra. He prepared an army to attack there. And the people were asking him, how are you going to attack a people who are not fighting against you? And then he tells them, if every governor lives with his region, meaning if every governor says, I'm not going to pledge and I'm staying with my region, I'm still in charge of them, he says the ummah will be separated. So we have to take the pledge by force. So in the sight of Ali radiallahu anhu, the ummah separating like this was a bigger fitna than just the issue of killing the murderers of Uthman right now or a little later. When he heads out, this is when he was on his way to Basra, he hears the news of the army of Mecca and he thought that it's better to stop them before they reach Basra. We have a narration from a man by the name of Marwan ibn Abdurrahman al-Khamisi. He says, we left Kufa, mu'tamirin. We left Al-Kufa to go to make Umrah. And we heard the news of the death of Uthman. We reached this area in which Ali radiallahu anhu with his army on the way to Al-Basra had stopped. And we found a small army there. I asked, what is that? And they said, Amir al-Mu'mineen. So he said, what is with him? Why is he here? They said he went out to get back Talha and Zubair and to prevent them, meaning from reaching Al-Basra. And I said, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Should I join Ali and fight against those two great men and the mother of the believers, meaning Aisha? He's thinking to himself, do I join Ali and fight against Talha and Zubair and Aisha? Or should I go against this and fight with them? Fight with Talha and Zubair and Aisha against those who killed Uthman. It's a predicament. And he's telling himself, which will I pick now? So he says, so I left and I came to him at Fajr prayer. Came to Ali radiallahu anh, Fajr prayer. And then he describes, he says he led the prayer and after Taslim, Al-Hasan sat in front of him. His son, his older son Al-Hasan came and sat in front of Ali. He says, I have told you, but you didn't listen to me. So tomorrow you'll be killed with no supporters. This is Al-Hasan talking to his father, telling him, I told you and you didn't listen to me, and tomorrow you're going to be killed without any supporters. So he's speaking to his father in such a harsh way. His father, Ali radiallahu anh, got angry. And he tells him, what did you tell me when I didn't listen? And Hassan says, I told you when they besieged Uthman to leave Medina. So if he's killed, you're not in it. Then I told you when he was murdered to not accept the pledge until the people come back to you and give you the bay'ah. Then I told you that when the two men went out, stay at home. He's talking about Talha and Zubair. So if there is any death or killing, it's not on you. So basically he wanted Ali radiallahu anhu to have no part in any of this. So then Ali says, oh son, as for leaving Medina, we were surrounded as he was surrounded. So he's saying, Uthman radiallahu anhu was surrounded in his home, and we were also not allowed to leave Medina and live freely and go wherever we want. The Sahaba couldn't do that. So then he says that as for the decision of the pledge, it was the decision of the people of Medina, and they're the ones who pledged to me. And then when Talha and Zubair went out, I've been upset ever since. Every time I try to fix something, people don't listen. And how could you want me to stay at home? How can I, when I am the Amir, what do you want me to do? He says to him, if I don't look after the affairs that I'm entrusted with, who will? So then he tells him, leave me be, O son. So it's a difficult situation. And the arguments of Hassan, they look good. But then the counter arguments of Ali radiallahu anhu, saying that I can't just sit in Medina and not look after these affairs and just sit and wait. So now at this point there are three armies. There is a major army in Ash-Sham, and it's not doing anything at the moment. And then there is an army that's moving towards Basra, and that is the army of Talha and Zubair and Aisha radiallahu anha. And then there's the army of Ali radiallahu anhu, and he only had 700 men, and he's attempting to stop Talha and Zubair. But as news of him approaching grew, his army grew and became anywhere from 1,000 to up to 3,000 warriors. So then Ali radiallahu anhu decides to go to Basra to stop Talha and Zubair. So now the people of Basra, they hear of this army coming to them. And Uthman ibn Hunayf, he was the governor that was put there by Ali radiallahu anhu. He had the choice now. Does he accept this army or does he stop this army? And we understand the army has in it Aisha radiallahu anha. Do you go out and stop this army with another force, or do you accept them? And he is given the bay'ah, and he is the governor of Ali radiallahu anhu. So these are the divisions that the Muslim Ummah was upon. So then when the army of Aisha radiallahu anha and Talha and Zubair reached near al-Basra in the area of al-Hufayr, Umayr ibn Abdullah al-Tamimi came to the mother of the believers and he said, "O mother of the believers, I ask you by Allah to write to them. Perhaps they'll agree to what you're calling them. They'll agree with you." And so he's saying, instead of going all the way in there with no introduction and seeing what it might happen, let's write them and they might just join us without any fight. So she likes his idea. So she told Ibn Amr, and he was, as we said, the former governor of Basra, and people by Uthman, and people liked him there and they knew him. So she tells him to enter into al-Basra and to inform the people of their intention, that they're gathering there so they can get their revenge and avenge the death of Uthman. So he agrees. So she sent him and he enters secretly into al-Basra. And she also gave letters to the leaders of al-Basra. And among them were famous companions like Al-Ahnaf ibn Qais and Sabra ibn Shayman. And she's waiting for the response at Al-Hufayr. So now their army is camped there. So then Abdullah ibn Amr enters and he finds the people with different views. Some don't want to participate at all. These are like the Sahabi Al-Ahnaf ibn Qais doesn't want to participate in the fitna at all. And others are with the view that there should be with the army of Ali radiallahu anhu and not that of Talha and Zubair and Aisha. So they refused to go out. So then Uthman ibn Hunayf, who was the governor of Ali, he heard of this army coming and he starts to prepare an army. In case they start to enter Basra by force, he's going to send this army to stop them. And he was afraid that people are not going to rally behind them, because the army has in it the mother of the believers, Talha and Zubair. So he sent Umran ibn Hussein and Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali to find out the state of mind of the people. And he also sent them to Aisha to see what the intent of their army is. And we can see the true intent from the narrations that came to us. They go to Aisha radiallahu anha in the place they're camped at. And they say to them, their messengers, say to them, "Our Amir sent us to you to find out the reason why you came here. So will you tell us?" And then Aisha radiallahu anha says to them, "Wallahi, one like me does not advance in secrecy. The things that I do are obvious. I don't have hidden intentions. And I would not hide from my children the news," because she's the mother of the believers. So she says that the troublemakers attacked the city of the messengers of Allah, and they did horrible things there, and they earned the curse of Allah, and that the curse of Allah and the curse of His messenger for what they did by murdering the Amir of the believers for no reason, and they stole his wealth in the month that is haram, in the place that is haram, and they come into this place by force, meaning Medina, while people are not able to stop them. So I came out to let the Muslims know of what they did and of the situation in Medina, that now it's under their control, and to let people know that they have a part in fixing this. So this is our aim, to encourage you to fix the situation. So very clearly from what she's saying radiallahu anha, it has nothing to do with wanting the Khilafah or that Ali shouldn't be the Khalifa. She never mentions that radiallahu anha. So she's just saying that the Khalifa is powerless. We're trying to fix the situation and we want to kill those who murdered Uthman. So Abu al-Aswad and Umran, they left and they went to Talha radiallahu anhu and they asked him, "What brought you here?" And he said, "To avenge the blood of Uthman." And they said, "But didn't you pledge to Ali?" He said, "Yes, with the sword at my neck." So to Talha it doesn't count, because he was forced. And he says, "I have no objection to Ali as Khalifa as long as he leaves between us and the murder of Uthman. I don't object to Ali as long as he doesn't get in our way of getting the murderers of Uthman." So they went and they bade farewell to the mother of the believers, and she bade Umran farewell and said, "O Abu al-Aswad, do not let desire lead you into the hellfire," and she gives him advice. So then they went back to the governor of Basra, Uthman ibn Hunayf, and they let him know that the army is only here because they want to kill the murderers of Uthman, and they're here without the permission of Ali. And he says, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And he consults them. This is the governor. What a difficult situation. So they decide to stay as they are. Whoever wants, from the people of Basra, the population, whoever wants to go join them, then that's okay. And if they want to stay in Basra, they stay. And he's saying, we're not going to defend the murderers of Uthman. So this is their position. But he says, I will not allow them to enter Basra without the permission of the Amir of the Mu'mineen. I'm not going to let these groups enter without the permission of the Khalifa, and that will cause chaos. So Umran says, Allah decrees what He wills, and he went home. Umran, one of the people He sent to Aisha, he goes to his home. And then Uthman ibn Hunayf wants to know the situation of Basra. So he sent someone to sit amongst the people. So the man came at a gathering, and he stood up and he said, I am Qais al-Humaysi. And these people, meaning the army of Mecca, who came to you, if they came afraid, meaning they came out of fear, then they came from a place where the birds are safe. So he's telling the people, he's testing the people. He's saying that if these people came out of fear, they came from the safest place, which is Mecca. The birds are safe there, because they're not allowed to be killed. And then he says, and if they came asking for the blood of Uthman, we're not the ones who killed him. So he's saying something like this, provocative, and he wants to see what the reaction will be. So then, a man by the name of Al-Aswad ibn Surayy al-Sa'di got up. And he said, do they think we're the killers of Uthman? So he's telling him, don't change the story. They're not here because they think we're the killers of Uthman. He says, they came to seek our aid in killing the murderers of Uthman. And then they took stones and they threw them at him, at Qais al-Humaysi. So the governor, Uthman ibn Hunayf, knew that now Basra is divided. There are people who want to join the army and people who don't.